So good evening to everyone. May we request those people, please mute yourselves. So we will start with an opening prayer.
Hope in the darkest night will flow, for the love you are, I know, is stronger than death. So I'll wait and I'll trust, 'cause I know your hands will mold us now into your life. Your kingdom come, your will be done, your name be held holy. Forgive us now as we turn around once more to each other. Love in the darkest night will grow, like the bread that's blessed and broken in your embrace. So you wait and you trust, 'cause you know that death brings forth new life. This world will cry, your kingdom come, your will be done, your name be held holy. Forgive us now as we turn around once more to each other. Truth in the darkest lie will show. In the end, this world will know where life has its source. So we'll wait and we'll trust, 'cause we know your life poured out has won. We'll fight till dawn. Your kingdom come, your will be done, your name be held holy. Forgive us now as we turn around once more to each other. Your kingdom come, your will be done, your name be held holy. Forgive us now as we turn around once more to each other.
So once again, good evening to each and everyone, and welcome to
Ikuan ni ko no ko guante. bag na ko nga black dong ba, ate?
Okay, are we ready now? For those who are open with their, we request for you to turn off your microphone. Okay, so once again, good evening to each and everyone and welcome to the webinar series, Drug Abuse Prevention, entitled Recognizing Signs of Addiction. This is in cooperation and led by the Department of Health, Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, Cebu City. And we're very happy tonight that experts coming from our Department of Health would be sharing to us, especially for us teachers, professional teachers, whom we are always in the front line of our youth today. So that the prevalence of drug addiction is always a menace to our society. And of course, as teachers, as professional teachers, for that matter, we are, of course, it is our moral obligation also as well to be, to at least help in this kind of advocacy, especially nowadays that it is really prevalent in our society. And we are very much ill-equipped most often in recognizing the signs of drug addiction. And this is very, very timely. So we're very happy that the Department of Health made this particular webinar series. And of course, this will definitely benefit all of us, especially handling students, especially students coming from the vulnerable sector. Before we will start officially our program, we would like, of course, to acknowledge, of course, the presence, of course, of our doctors from the Department of Health. They will be introduced later. They are led by, of course, their chief hospital, the chief of hospital, si Dr. Jasmine Peralta. And later, the speakers will be introduced by Dr. Jane Giselle. I'd also like to acknowledge, of course, the presence of our basic education principals who are here with us. Miss Dr. Elaine Patino, Mrs. Susan Durano, Mrs. Maura Villamor, and of course, Mrs. Arlene Roldan. They brought themselves as well, their teachers, alongside with the graduate school students of the University of Southern Philippines Foundation under me, Education 250, Education 256, and Education 253, who are here with us tonight. So we would like to acknowledge and we would like to thank each and everyone for participating in tonight's drug abuse prevention webinar series entitled Recognizing Signs of Addiction. And of course, to officially welcome us all, we're very honored to have this person with us, especially coming from the Department of Health, Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, Cebu City. She is the chief of hospital, and she will be giving us the opening remarks to officially welcome us all in this particular webinar series. So let us all welcome Dr. Jasmine Peralta.
Good evening, good evening to everyone. On behalf of the DOH-TRC Cebu City for Females located here in Hagobiao, Mandaue City, I would like to first and foremost thank the University of Southern Philippines Foundation family, led by the participants now, and of course by Dr. Lucio Pulmones, our moderator for tonight, and the participants, the basic education principals and teachers, the masters in education students, actually the graduate school students and the faculty members of the school. So we are so glad to start with your school, with USPF, our webinar series on drug abuse prevention. And tonight we'll be having the topic recognizing signs of drug addiction. So we have the advocacy committee led by Dr. Jane Giselle. So I'm so glad that the group has already initiated this particular endeavor to start with. because we all know that we have the Republic Act 9165, which is the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002. And included in the act is the role of the school, that is written in Article 4, the participation of the students, the teachers, and the school administrators or the authorities in the enforcement of the act. And we all know that education is very vital in preventing drug addiction. So in the drug-free workplace also, we must be able to really do our part as school authorities, teachers, and students to how we can prevent drug addiction in the school. So with this particular activity, we hope that we will be able to partner with you. And I am also hoping, sir, that this will not be the first
The last.
thing that we can do. We can actually do a sustainable program for the school. We can partner with the school formally so that we can have a continuous preventive education for our students. So with that, with the help of our speakers, our head of the outpatient and aftercare division or department, Dr. Clint Banaay, and our psychometrician, si Angro Kagakit, with, of course, Dr. Jane Jase, who is the chairman of our advocacy committee. We hope that whatever we try to be the objectives, to have the objectives for tonight's activity, we hope that we'll be able to come up with a good output for this, so that we can actually go on with this particular endeavor. So again, thank you so much for the partnership. We are actually partners in preventing drug addiction in our, at least first in our region or in our city. Thank you so much, and God bless everyone.
Thank you very much.
Salamat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jasmine Peralta, the Chief Hospital 2 of Department of Health Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, Cebu City. So we're very honored, Doc, that you came here with us tonight, and definitely USPF. This will not be our last. This will be the many partnership that the school maybe perhaps will be coordinating with you, especially with regards to prevention of drug abuse. So thank you very much, Doc, and good evening. So at this juncture, we would like also to introduce our facilitators tonight. She is the Medical Officer 3 of the Department of Health Cebu Treatment and Rehab Center for Women. And she's also the chairperson of the Center's Advocacy and Education Committee. Let us all welcome Dr. Jane Giselle.
Thank you, Kuya. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Lucio.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you. So thank you for that introduction. Allow me to share screen for the introduction of the speakers.
Okay, nakashare ka, wala. Yes, okay.
Makita na.
Yes. Okay, good.
Okay.
Yes.
So for our first speaker, he's a man of passion, not the kind of passion that comes into your mind when you think of something green or gray, but the passion that describes someone who pours his heart out into something that he believes in. This man is a family physician who strongly believes that there is a hope for every drug addict. In his experience, before he became passionate about the battle against drug addiction, he thought all the while that persons who use and abuse drugs are salot sa lipunan and are people without hope. But this belief was proven wrong when during his years of practice as a medical doctor and as a rehabilitation practitioner at the Department of Health and Cebu Treatment and Rehabilitation Center for Women, he personally witnessed lives of drug addicts changing and have fully recovered. Although not quickly, because drug addiction recovery is always a very long journey, a very long process. But he saw miracles happening in the lives of many patients, including the seemingly hopeless cases, especially in the outpatient and aftercare department, of which he is the head. He noticed that every time he treats patients who use and abuse drugs, recovery is nearly impossible unless the whole family is involved in the healing, recovery, and treatment plan of the patient. He said, when you treat a drug addict, you need to treat the whole family. And thus, this becomes his battle cry against his fight against drug addiction. So, without further ado, let us welcome the passionate drug addiction soldier, Dr. Anacleto Clent Jr. Banaay Jr.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening to all the members of USPF.
Good evening, Doc.
Would you like to share screen, Doc?
So good evening once again to all the members and faculty and staff of USPF. I am tasked to lecture you about the signs, how to recognize the signs of someone who is addicted to substance of abuse. So for tonight, this is our objective. Define the term addiction and the related terms connected to it. Discuss the causes of addiction. Determine the different phases of addiction. Discuss the different manners in how we recognize the signs and symptoms of addiction. Let us first look into the problem. The prevalence of addiction or the prevalence of addiction has increased tremendously throughout the years. In the United States, they account like 74% of those persons who is addicted to substance abuse are also addicted to alcohol abuse, and 50% of those who involve in substance abuse are also having comorbidities. When we say comorbidities, they also have health issues or mental disorders. So in this slide, it is projected that the number that your drug of abuse accounts for the non-communicable causes of death in the United States. And if you see, as you can see in the graph, the number one cause of death among those that are abused by these patients is the synthetic opioids or the analgesic. These are pain reliever drugs, followed by psychostimulants. And the famous psychostimulants we have all over the world would be pure methamphetamine, which is also locally known as shabu. Okay. So in the Philippines, we have this data. This data are from those patients admitted from the different government-owned rehabilitation centers in the Philippines. And this data is from 2009. Out of those people admitted in the rehabilitation center, the mean age was 32, while the median age was 33. Half of them, or approximately half of them, are single. And then many males are involved in drug addiction compared to females. That is 9:1 ratio. Half of them, or more than half of this population, are employed, so they can sustain their drug addiction because of their salaries. Then 30% of these individuals are at the high school level, or they have reached high school, meaning it is attributed that these people were influenced in school, or they were influenced by their peer. Then they belong to the average family income group in the Philippines, and much of the drug addicts or people who use drugs are in the urbanized areas in the Philippines. Usually, when we term addiction, this is a chronic use of the drugs. And those people who were admitted in the rehabilitation centers have used more than 6 years of drugs. And most of them are using mono drug use. When we say mono drug use, they are using one type of drug. When we say poly drug use, they are using, or the person is using more than one type of drug. Okay. The most significant drugs of abuse here in the Philippines is shabu, followed by cannabis or marijuana, and third would be your rugby or your contact cement or your inhalants. In Asia, the number one cause of, or the number one drug of abuse is your marijuana, followed by your stimulants. So it's different in the Philippines because, as they say, shabu is the poor man's cocaine. It is more affordable, and the effect lasts longer. So let's define what is drug abuse. How do we say that you are a person is a drug user, a drug abuser, and a drug addict? But to change the connotation about drug addict, we are avoiding the word addicts. We try to use a more politically acceptable terms like PWODs, people or persons who use drugs, PWODs, or persons who inject drugs, or PWIDs. For us in the medical field or in the addiction field, we usually term addiction as a specific diagnosis, such as substance abuse disorder or substance use disorder. So when we say drug abuse, it is the repeated, uncontrolled use of the substance. So when we have unrepeated use, meaning pabalik-balik, paulit-ulit. When a person is a user, he may use it once, then he may use it the next time, like there's a party in the future or the next month. He may use the substance because there is a need to use the substance. For example, of addictive substance, your coffee. You want to take some coffee because you want to wake up. So there's a need to take your coffee. So you are a user of the coffee, right? There is a need to use the substance. So you are just using the substance. Then the caffeine of the coffee is what you need to stay awake. When you say drug abuse, there is repeated uncontrolled. You are taking coffee, you're taking your cigarette without the need of taking it, but you just like taking it because you like the effect of the coffee. You like the effect of the nicotine that stimulates your mind, that relaxes your body. You like the effect of coffee because you stay awake, you stay invigorated, and you stay alert without doing anything. So you become an abuser of the substance, especially when you repeat the coffee again and you try another a third cup or a fourth cup or a fifth cup without any use at all. So you become an abuser. When you become a drug addict, a drug addict, or when we term drug addiction, it is a chronic use, just like drug abuse. There is repeated, uncontrolled use. But here in drug addiction, there is compulsion. Remember, there is compulsion, meaning you want to seek and you cannot live without having it. There is compulsion and you like to seek the drug, even if you are involved in harmful activities like stealing. You want to steal, you want to rob banks, you want to rob a store just to get the money and buy shabu. So there is already a harmful effect. And there is also an involvement of negative consequences, meaning there is already a dysfunctionality going on. You become dysfunctional with your family relationship. You become dysfunctional with your friends. You become dysfunctional at school or at work. Okay? Then aside from that, there is a risky behavior. What about this risk-taking behavior? For example, those IV drug user. We all know that when you share needles, you can predispose to HIV and Hep B, right? But drug users will tend to use the same needle and suppressing the inhibition factor. No, they just suppress the inhibition factor and they don't care. Even if they were aware before, they don't care at all if they get infected with HIV and Hep B because they want to inject themselves. These are your harmful consequences and negative consequences. They become dysfunctional to their work, to their school, to their health, and they involve in many harmful activities. This is the difference between drug addiction and drug abuse. So addiction is a disease, they say. We say as doctors in the field of medicine, addiction is a disease. When we say or when we define disease, a disease is an alteration of normal structure. So the normal structure or processes or the physiologic process in the body becomes abnormal. When your heart enlarges, you have cardiomegaly. Your heart enlarges, it's abnormal. When your kidney starts to fail, you have kidney disorder. It becomes abnormal. You have the disease. Just like in addiction, the normal processes in the brain becomes disrupted. The normal structures of the brain, the wiring and the circuitry becomes disrupted. So drug addiction is a disease of the brain. When we say chronic, it lasts longer. Just like diabetes, hypertension, it lasts a lifetime. If you stop taking your medication, the symptoms of the diabetes will go back. If you stop taking your medications for hypertension, you'll be high blood again. Or if you stop taking your medications for asthma, you become asthmatic again. You will retrieve the symptoms of asthma. So drugs or drug addiction is a chronic disease because even if the patients will become sober for a long time, they can undergo relapse anytime. They can undergo relapse. According to statistics, 40 to 60% of those patients who were treated for drug addiction will go into relapse. 40 to 60%. That's a high number because it's a chronic disease and it's a relapsing disease. It can go back. It waxes and wanes. When you stop monitoring this patient, when you stop the intervention, they can eventually go back, especially with the influences, with so many factors, the environmental factors and the home, the family factors are also it can be involved, no? So there are two types of addiction actually. We have substance addiction. When we say substance, these people who are addicted to a particular substance. It could be nicotine from the tobacco. The nicotine is the addictive substance from the tobacco or from the cigarette. It could be alcohol, inhalants, illicit drugs or non-illicit drugs like your over-the-counter drugs or prescription drugs, and some medications as well, like your analgesics. People who are addicted to opioids really want to take analgesics most of the time. No, they feel in pain even if they don't have physical pain at all. Maybe because of emotional pain. That's why they want the effect of the analgesia. The other one is behavioral addiction. It could be addiction to an activity like gambling, working, or workaholic. There is such a term as workaholic, sex addiction, shopping addiction, video game addiction, internet or media addiction, like addiction on Facebook. Sige lang Facebook. You're not doing anything else. Sige lang kag Facebook. But what's the difference between substance addiction and behavioral addiction? In substance addiction, there is what we call as the term as dependency. You become dependent to the substances. When we say dependent, you become dependent to the substances. It means like it becomes your lifeline. Without it, it feels like you will die. It feels like you'll die. No, ano ba? You're about to die. Mura siya source of life nimo. Like if you cannot take your coffee in the morning, feeling nimo luya ka, right? But you can still live without coffee. You can still live without alcohol. You can still live without those drugs. So there is dependency in substance addiction, while in behavioral addiction, there is no such thing as dependency because there is no substance in the first place that stimulates our mind to become addicted to it. Okay? So the next slide. So what is a drug? Remember drugs like paracetamol, your cough syrup, your medications for your cough, your medications for your sip-on are all drugs, no? These are chemicals that change the way your body works. They affect your body, they affect your brain, they affect your organ, and they affect the entire system, just like drugs. However, drugs will try to change your mindset, will try to change your thought process, and will enhance your mood. That's why these drugs are called psychoactive drugs. An example of your over-the-counter or psychoactive drugs which you can find in the kitchen is your caffeine. You can purchase anytime alcohol, nicotine, analgesics like your ibuprofen, mefenamic acid. They suppress pain, right? So they alter the brain function that senses pain. So these are your psychoactive substances or psychoactive drugs. However, there are also psychoactive active drugs that causes disease, no, to the brain, that affects the brain permanently, that affects the brain, how it works permanently. And this can be classified as your inhalants, or your prohibited drugs as your inhalants, your stimulants, your sedatives, and your hallucinogens. I will be elaborating what are those substances. Basta they affect the way your brain thinks, it enhances your mood, and it enhances it will alter your consciousness. So these psychoactive drugs alter or change your mood. From a very bad mood, after taking your shabu, you become happy. Diba? In the morning when you're so sleepy, you take your coffee, and after 30 minutes you'll be awake. You'll be awakened by the effect of your caffeine. The peak hours of your coffee is 30 minutes. So you wait for the coffee to take its effect. So when you take your coffee, wait for 30 minutes, it will take its effect after 30 minutes. You feel awake after 30 minutes. Ano mo effect akong coffee? Mo di kay after 30 minutes pa. Your smoke or your cigarette, it takes effect after 5 to 15 minutes. You know what's the difference? Why is it so fast? Because you take it inhalationally. You inhale the smoke, you inhale the caffeine, so it reaches the system faster compared to your coffee, wherein it goes to the stomach. Okay? Consciousness. Some people will take shabu to be awake. I have interviewed taxi drivers who have to go on duty for 24 hours just to be awake. They have to take shabu. Pero ilang drinaiban, kuyaw na kaayo, right? Like the mga porter, support, they take shabu so that they can carry heavy object. They have to be awake 24 hours because they have to wait for the ship to arrive, right? So they must stay awake. So that's consciousness. They alter consciousness. And once they undergo crash, they would go into crash na wa nang epekto sa shabu, mo na gitawag natog nitugpa na sa Bisaya pa, nitugpa na sila. They would sleep the entire day without taking food, without taking any drinks. Mo nang luya kay na sila. Nawa naman ang effect sa shabu. And it will alter your thinking process. They become motivated. Mo nang giingon nila sa una, ang torpe daw nga lalaki mo take o shabu, the next day lima nay uyab. Because it boosts their morale, it boosts their motivation. Okay? So those are the effect of your psychoactive substances. Now, there is what we call neurotransmitter. What are these neurotransmitters? These are chemicals that transmit or convey messages from one nerve to another until such time it reaches the brain. Your brain is a big ball of circuits. So when we say circuits, just like wirings, they connect from one another. So the corriente will cross to another corriente, to another post, to another, until it reaches your household, no? From the vehicle. So ingana po ang brain, it's a big chunk of wires. So these wires, in order to connect from one wire to another, it must be your neurotransmitter is responsible for the conveying of this transmission. Your transmitter, as mentioned here, your dopamine, your glutamate, your norepinephrine, your serotonin is responsible for the effect or the feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of happiness and euphoria. When your dopamine goes up, it conveys the signal from one wire to the reward center of the brain. So the target of your dopamine, the target of your serotonin is the reward center of the brain. When your reward center is stimulated, when the reward center of the brain is stimulated by this neurotransmitter, it becomes activated. The person or the people taking or those people becomes happy. They feel happy. So your neurotransmitter has a direct relationship with your mood, thinking process, and consciousness. Okay? So these are your hormones. I've mentioned your neurotransmitter or your hormones convey signals to the brain. Your serotonin is a mood stabilizer. It comes from the diet. An example of this is your chocolate. Your dark chocolate has your serotonin. Your serotonin from your dark chocolate is converted eventually to dopamine. So when you're sad, when you feel lonely, when you feel down, you just eat dark chocolate. It improves your mood. Okay? Another source of your serotonin would be your banana. Pero you have to eat a large bulig of banana to feel the effect of serotonin. Okay? So your dopamine is a natural neurotransmitter in the brain. It's part of the brain. It's a chemical inside the brain, and it stimulates the reward center of the brain. When this is released in your brain, your reward center is activated, you will feel pleasurable. You will feel rewarded. Muna, kamo naka-graduate mo sa college ninyo, when your parents are so happy, and when you look at the faces of your parents when you graduated, you feel so happy too. That's the effect of your dopamine. You feel being rewarded. Naka-accomplish kog something. I finished my task. I finished school. I feel so rewarded. That's the effect of your dopamine. Oxytocin is another important hormone. This is a love hormone. Ano love hormone, man? This is released when you have a intimate relationship. Kung na-feel nimo ang love, when you feel in love, this is because of the substance oxytocin. Endorphin is released during exercise. Mo na bitaw kung luya kay ka, you don't feel like working, you don't feel like going to school, you just exercise and suddenly you become active. It's because of the effect of your endorphin released during exercise. So these are the hormones, 4 important hormones that stimulates your brain processes. So there are 3 areas of your brain. There are 3 areas in your brain rather that is being targeted by this menace or by these drugs of abuse. These are your basal ganglia, your extended amygdala, which are part of the reward center of the brain. The red one, or the pons, is the color red here is your pons, is the reward center of the brain. This is responsible for the feeling of euphoria and the feeling of happiness and the feeling of being rewarded. Okay, there are 2 parts, the basal ganglia and the extended amygdala. The prefrontal cortex is here. This is responsible for cognition, the ability of the person to think if it is bad or not, good or bad. Okay, so when this drug stimulates the reward center, your dopamine is released because of the drugs. No, drug stimulates the dopamine release. They surge your reward center. The basal ganglia, which is responsible for the feeling of euphoria, will be activated. The extended amygdala is responsible for the feeling of suppress or depression. Feeling ganin mo cranky ka or depressed ka or bad mood, that's because of your extended amygdala. This is unfortunately suppressed by your drugs. That's why when people take drugs, it suppresses the extended amygdala and it enhances the basal ganglia. So opposite effect. Ang basal ganglia nimo ma-enhance, so what's the effect? You feel euphoric, you feel rewarded. When the extended amygdala is suppressed, you erase those feelings of depression and crankiness. Once the drugs wear off, the extended amygdala activates again. The basal ganglia is now suppressed. So when those people after taking drugs have wane off na ilang drug use, nawa ng epekto sa drug, feeling nila cranky sila, bad mood sila all the time. They don't feel like they don't feel like communicating. They just want to isolate. Bad mood sila. They are so aggressive because of the function of your extended amygdala, which is suppressed during drug use. Okay, that is how your drug works on the reward center of your brain. Now, once your reward center becomes activated, you feel like you feel satiety, you feel busog. That's why when you eat your precious meal or your favorite meal, lami kay ang feeling after, ganahan ka matulog. That's because of the effect of your reward center. The reward center will tell you or will update you. You are rewarded with the food, with the water, with nourishment, and with all the care in the world. That's why when the drugs activate or targets the reward center, they don't want to feel they don't feel hunger anymore. They don't want to. They don't feel hungry anymore. They don't feel thirsty anymore, and they don't want to make intimate relationship. They want to be alone. They want to be with their peers who you also use drugs. No, they don't want to get nurtured. Magganahan na sila sarili, mag alone. So mo na effect sa imong drugs to your reward center. It acts like a food, water, sex, and nurturing. So what I mentioned earlier, diba? The brain is a big ball of circuits. So when your brain is a big ball of circuits, the reward center, which is found in the medulla part or the medullary part of the brain or the center part of the brain, communicates with the other parts of the brain because of the circuitry. So when your reward center is enhanced, is activated, it communicates with the areas of the brain that controls movement, sensation, vision, memory, coordination, and judgment. That's why when you're drunk, you lose coordination. Taka-taka na lang, natumba na, nabangga sa poste ang car because they lose their coordinations. And sometimes they lose their visions. When people take inhalants like mga rugby, they take hallucinogens like marijuana, it can obscure your memory. You lose that memory. You lose that good memory, and you just remember the memories when you're taking drugs. The good sensation, the memories of those memories, the good times will be lost. You will just remember those times when you just take your drugs and you feel the euphoric effect of your drugs. That's why people tend to use opioids or they use analgesic because they want to suppress some sensations. Remember, your brain is responsible for the feeling of pain, right? So when you suppress the feeling or the sensation center of the brain, you become numb, manhid, and your ability to judge is gone. Am I going to shoot this police officer or not? I'm going to shoot this woman who sang itong police officer, right? Diretso lang siya pusil without any judgment. Maybe he was taking shabu. So you lose all those things because of the effect of the drugs. Now, what I said earlier, your dopamine has direct relationship with satiety, euphoria, and reward. So let's take, for example, when you're taking your food. When you take your food is a natural, excuse me. Your food is a natural stimulant for your dopamine. Once you take your favorite food, your dopamine is released. Your dopamine stimulates the reward center. So you feel satiety after taking your favorite meal. So the dopamine, if you look at the graph, the dopamine rises by about 150. When your dopamine rises by about 150 after taking your meal, it slowly declines. And by the time it declines, you feel like eating again because your brain wants the effect of the dopamine release. That's the effect of your dopamine to the reward center. When someone takes cigarette, it has a profound effect to dopamine compared to the dopamine level when you're taking food. Diba? Food has only 150. When someone takes cigarette, the dopamine can reach us about 200, better than your food. That's why people who smoke, they smoke continuously because they want to sustain the effect of dopamine because the dopamine sustains your euphoria, your happiness, or your reward feeling. Okay? That's why also other people wants to take cigarette because they want to lose weight. Your brain thinks that I'm busog. Your brain thinks that I'm already satisfied. Why would I take food? So they just take cigarette in order to lose weight. So let's compare the effect of your other substance of abuse to your dopamine. Like for example, here in the graph, amphetamine. Amphetamine is also known as shabu. You look at the graph again, and it shows that your dopamine level can rise up to 1,000. Your food has only 150. Your cigarette is only 200, but your amphetamine can reach about 1,000. So ang feeling nila cloud 9. They have reached the feeling and abot sila sa langit. Ingana ang effect sa methamphetamine. And when you ask me, why is it very hard to quit? Of course, when you feel the effect of amphetamine that is better than food and it is better than a cigarette, you would not stop taking it anymore, right? That's why it's very hard to quit when you enter. Okay? Cocaine, it's about 300, but still amphetamine has the highest ejection of your dopamine. Your nicotine, 200 lang, di ba? Your morphine, which is an opioid, is only 200. Mo euphoric feeling there is euphoric feeling of morphine because your dopamine can also rise with your morphine. So among these four substances, among these four addicting substances, your amphetamine is the winner. Shabu is the winner. Muna, di ka mag-wonder, nganong shabu is rampant everywhere. They love to seek even if it causes harm. So these are your common addictive substances. Like I said earlier, your substance of abuse can be divided as inhalants, sedatives, hallucinogens, and your stimulants. Your alcohols, opioids, cannabis are sedative, meaning when you take these substances, you fall into sleep after. You feel the melancholy effect, no? Lami kay ang kinabuhi. You just sleep with and forget all those problems. Forget all those depression and you just fall into sleep after taking these substances. However, cannabis or marijuana, if taken at a very high amount, it becomes a hallucinogen. So sedative siya a small amount, but it becomes a hallucinogen. When we say hallucinogen, it is an hallucinating substance. Makakita na ka Ginoo, makakita na ka bisag kinsa, nag-hallucinate na ka. Okay? When taken at a very large amount. Your nicotine, amphetamine or shabu, cocaine, and your methamphetamine are stimulants. They stimulate, they give you energy to stay awake all night. They activate you, they make you become active. These substances make you become active. Okay, alert, active, and sleepless. So let's go now to the phases of addiction. If you're going to ask me again, if someone takes shabu, if someone takes these illegal drugs, do they become addicts right away? No. The answer is no. They undergo different phases of addiction. There is a dramatic change, no? There's a dramatic change where they undergo different phases of addiction. So we'll have to analyze or we'll have to discuss them one by one here. So first is abstinence. This is a time when remember when someone tells you, "Uy, inom ta." But you know that your mother will scold you. You know that your mother will be very angry if you go with your barkada. So you will refuse that someone. You refuse your peers, no? You'll refuse your amigo. So you're abstaining, right? But the next time, nahagbong ka sa exam, I'm so pissed off. I'm so depressed. I failed in the examination. I was evicted at my work, no? Na evict sa work because of the pandemic. So what do? They would look for things, they would experiment, they would search for medication that will alleviate their feelings or emotion. So unsa may makapawa? Then here comes your bad influence, your friends. O inom na lang ta. Sige, di man ta kuminom, pero mo try ko. This is your experimentation stage. Okay. So, every time you feel that way, you become depressed. Nawa man ang imong depression every time mo inom kag alcohol. Okay, next month na pod. So there is what we call social, you become recreational. There is a start of pattern. Next month becomes weekly. So monthly becomes weekly and sometimes becomes daily. Okay. The next part is habituation. This is by the time that you lose control. This is what happens among long-term drug user or long-time drug shabu users. What do? They sniff shabu, and when they don't feel the effect, the euphoric effect of shabu, they would tend to use another shabu. Okay? They term this as follow-upan. Awa man ka-reach sa cloud 9, so I have to take another one. They would even quarrel their peers. Ngano man, ayun na tong invite ta si kuan ha, kita na lang duha. Ngano man, the lesser people who will take shabu, the better. Mas bigger ang concentration, right? So di na nila invite. Okay, kita na lang duha. Until such time, you would use it on your own na lang. Di na kaganahan ka share. Okay? Then, there is abuse or what we call tolerance. There is in abuse, there is tolerance. You lose when this is the time when the drugs has diminished its effect on you. Mo nang giingon na immune na sa Bisaya pa na immune. Di naman kumudutlan og usa ka baso. I need 1 bottle of wine to get the effect of wine, no? Sa una usa ka grande, usa ka case, and then 5 ka case hantod nawa na iyang di na siya mahubog with 1 bottle. So that is what we call tolerance, no? Nawa na ang potency sa drug or ni-decrease na ang potency sa drugs. Then the last phase of your drug addiction is dependence. This is the time when you create or when you make activities, you search for the drugs, whatever it costs. Will you steal, even if you steal money from your mother or from your parents? Will you steal money from your coworkers because you want to sustain the use of drugs because, di ba, it's your lifeline? You become dependent to it. That's why we term it as dependence. Okay? So this is the spectrum of psychoactive drugs. All drug users started using drug because it has a beneficial effect to them. They did not take drugs because it will kill them. They want to use that because they get benefit from it. They feel euphoric, they feel rewarded, they feel happy with it. And then with the continuous use of drugs, it becomes casual. No problem pa, wala pa problem. They conceal the problem. Okay ra. They can allocate some of their earnings can be allocated. Magtigom pa sila because this is intended for my drug use next month or for next week. Okay, until such time that because they go into problematic phase or period. Unsa man, wala na sila tinigom, nahurot na sa drugs. They cannot sustain their family anymore. They cannot share their livelihood or salary to their family members. Wala na siyang natigom para sa pamilya. So this becomes a problematic period. And then the chronic dependency. You lose all your belongings, mangawat pa jud ka, and then you have what? Mga risky behaviors. There is risky behaviors and there is already an effect on your health. Unsa man? Nanakay symptoms of hypertension or nanakay hypertension, heart disease because of the effect of this shabu, nanakay lung disease because of the effect of your cigarette smoke, or nanakay liver disease because of the effect of your alcohol, but you did not stop taking it. You were not aware, or you were aware but you refused to recognize that you have the problem. So there is chronic dependence. So let's go now to the part where unsa man jud naka-cause sa addiction. Dog ano ma-addict man ang tao? What's the causes of addiction? Addiction is being linked to genetics. We stay away from the word hereditary, no? Kay maglagot jud ang parents na kaliwat manikuan good addict mo nang addict mo yang anak. So we stick to the word genetically transmitted siya. It's in your genes. You may have it, you may don't have it. You don't have it or you may have it. So genetics. About 40 to 60% who are addictive has been linked to genetic properties. Another factor, environment. This is a very broad term, environmental factors. There are a lot of inherent sub-factors involved in your environmental factors. It could be your family, community, school, peers, and yourself even. So these are your different factors or risk factors that are part of your environmental factors, like the community. These problems has been linked to drug use. If you have these problems in your community, in your family, in your school, among your peers or yourself, then you're more likely to engage in drug addiction. For example, in the community, there is rampant drug use. If you live in Lorega, San Miguel, sorry for the place, no? Pero in Lorega, San Miguel, it's rampant there. Pasil. So the neighborhoods are using. So the child will be exposed to your neighborhoods, right? Availability of firearms. There is violence in the community. Lack of enforcement of the law. Walay barangay tanod, walay police. Or economic deprivation. These are just the reasons why a person or a child is predisposed to these kinds of factors. Family factor. There is inherent family dysfunction, family conflicts. These are another factors which predispose someone to go into drug addiction or someone to go into drug use. School factor. Your peers, no? Peers is one of the reasons why people are persuaded to go into usage. Peer pressure is among them, right? Peer pressure. Lack of commitment to school. Individual or peer pressure, again. You have antisocial disorders, alienation. So when a child or when a student is alienated from the rest of the group, what do? They seek acceptance to another group. Unfortunately, sometimes this group are the bad influences, right? So friends who engage in drug addiction can influence them. And some constitutional factors. This includes your mental health issue, najuday kay repression. You have an antisocial disorder. It was not addressed. So you just self-medicate because drugs will suppress those emotional things that keeps on bugging your mind. Okay. So these are your environmental factors, no? Community, family, school, individual, or peers, no? So what more? If you have the genetic trait and you have the environmental factors, mas grabe pa imong predisposition to drug use, right? Okay. So what are the symptoms? Let's go now to the symptoms and signs since we have explained why there is drug addiction, what causes drug addiction. Now, what are the symptoms of drug addiction? Cravings is the feeling that you are desiring something. You are taking class, you are here in the webinar, but but at the back of your mind, you're imagining your drugs. You're imagining something to take. Okay? This is your cravings, no? Mentally absent because your mind is somewhere else. You want to take the drugs. Urge, this is the action part. This is the time when you want to skip the webinar and go somewhere else and buy some shabu. This is the urge part, the doing part. These are your symptoms of addiction. So cravings and tolerance. This is the desire to experience euphoria. Again, after taking the drugs and you felt that euphoria, you want to recall that euphoria. That's why you crave, no? And you lose that ability to reach that euphoric level. That's why you take more, okay? These cravings often serve as the first sign of addiction. Nag-crave gani ang usa ka tao, that is one sign of an addictive behavior. The decreased effect produced after taking drugs and need to get more, mo na mag-follow up ang ubang drug addict, is what we call tolerance. Okay? After taking shabu, di na ka makontent to one sachet, you take more the next day or 2 to 3 sachets because you have increased your tolerance already. Now, another signs that someone is involved in drug use is being disinterested in activities. Okay? So, and as addiction develops, it's common to lose interest in hobbies and other things you enjoyed. If you enjoy your family, going out with your families before, now you don't want once you take into once you involve yourself into drugs. Mona, you lose your family, you lose your relationship because of your drug use. Then this happens because your brain no longer produces much dopamine in response to the natural trigger. What are your natural triggers? Food is a natural trigger, diba? Dopamine rises upon taking your favorite meal, upon bonding with your families, right? So You need to look at the performance. Is your performance in school affected already? Excessive absenteeism, tiredness in school, at work, low productivity, low grades in school, missed deadlines, deteriorating work quality, increased minor accidents, mistakes, multiple thefts incidents, nangawat, stealing. These are your signs, no, that you have to look into. Loss of control. Sa money. Addiction usually involves an inability to control substance use or specific behavior. They lose their jobs, they have health issues, but they don't recognize it. They don't even recognize the relationship problem. Then they have a sudden change in attitude. Good butan man ni siya sa unang karong lain na lagi ni siya batasan. They have that concept, they have developed the I don't care attitude. Bahalag mahagbong. Sudden deteriorations of friendship, relationship, explosive arguments, basta gamay lang argument, nag-away na kayo, grabe na kayong away, poor moral, erratic behavior, indecisiveness, and sometimes, sige na lang pangutang, restless na kay sila. Then the long-term effect, this is the scary part because once they have the long-term effect, it's very hard to treat them already. They have impairment with judgment, learning abilities, decision-making, stress handling, memory, and behavioral change, which could later lead to altered behavior. Altered behavior or altered behavior, yeah? They become aggressive, they go into risky behaviors, mangawat, mag-prostitution just to buy drugs. So other consequences when you take drugs, medical and psychiatric consequences, they develop neurotoxicity, brain damage, mental disorders, heart problems, cancer, even HIV and AIDS because they would go into prostitution. They engage in risky, unsafe sex practices. So what are the warning signs of drug use? You look at the physical signs. What are these physical signs? Look. So bloodshot eyes, no? This is because of the effect of vasodilatation caused by your marijuana, no? Papillary dilatation caused by the effect of your methamphetamine. You lose appetite because of your alcohol. I mean, you lose appetite, then eventually you lose your weight because of chronic smoking. Change in sleeping pattern because of the effect of your methamphetamine. Ang shabu, sige na makagamata. So nag-insomnia na ka. Deterioration of physical appearance, no? Personal grooming habits is changed. They have unusual smell and breath because they don't take baths anymore. Tremors, slurring of speech, impaired coordination. These are some of the physical signs of drug use. And what about the behavioral signs of drug use? Drop in attendance, motong gingon ninyo nga wala na perform, they lose the performance, sa una achiever karon di na. Sudden change in friends, favorite hangouts and hobbies, unexplained change in personality or attitude, mood swings, irritability and angry outbursts, lack of motivations. What are so how do we identify the initial signs? Actually, it's very hard to identify the first phase of addiction. In the early stages, a person might not show the telltale signs of a full-blown addiction. Some early stage includes experimentation. Dili pa na mo mahibawan. You won't be able to determine if that person has physical, behavioral change, like in the experimentation stage, or the family has addiction problem, na ay nagshabu sa pamilya, or someone is being drawn to activities like ganahan maminaw mga shabu-shabu, seeking out situations where the substance or activity is present, episodes of bringing or losing self-control. When it comes to common social behaviors like smoking or drinking, it might be difficult to determine if there's addiction problem. Muinom lang, dili pa na addict. You don't know if kanang niinom addict na because you won't be able to know unless you've reached the higher phases of addiction. Okay? The most important thing is how? Be caring, no? You ask them, what's the problem? Then If they're going to tell you the problem, okay, you listen to this problem. Do not coerce them. Do not confront them. Because the tendency is when you confront them, they would conceal more. They would lie more even. No? So looks for changes in personality. After a person moves past experimenting the early phases of addiction, they likely exhibit major personality or behavioral change, like lack of interest, neglecting relationship, nakigbuwag sa asawa, nakigbuwag sa uyab, kaya niadto na lang sa mga barkada, missing important obligations at work, risk-taking tendencies, ignore, like mag-drive hubog, no? Ignoring the negative consequences, nagpalpitate na, nag-drugs gihapon. Distinct changes in sleeping pattern, like they become insomniac, pero nagshabu gihapon. Increased secrecy, they would lie even. You may notice an increase in alienation over time. Isolate na sila. Isolated na. People with an addiction tends to surround themselves with other people who encourage their habits. And when you confront them, they would make excuses, and they would even justify nga, this is the only way. This is the only thing that makes me happy. Okay? So about changes in your health, like what I said earlier, pwede na ka mag-develop of heart disease, pwede na ka mag-develop of lung disease, your teeth can be broken, nangadaot imong ipon because of the effect of your methamphetamine, your life is destroyed because of shabu or drug use. And the following mental and emotional changes could also be signs of addictive problem. Sudden change in your mood, aggressive behavior, sigilag kasuko, irritability, depression, apathy, wala, manhid, and suicidal thoughts can be your signs of an emotional change brought about by addiction. Now, how do we treat them? Since addiction is a complex disease, but it is treatable. It is not curable, but it is manageable. Treatment should be accessible, and we do always emphasize individualized patient care. Behavioral intervention is the best treatment. Voluntary, or whether you compel someone to go into rehabilitation, they have the same effect. Whether you force someone to go into rehabilitation or they let themselves submitted into the rehabilitation, the effect will be the same. Assess for comorbidities and treat it. Kung na sila heart disease, kidney disease, lung disease, we also treat them. So these are the factors that favors addiction, diba? The environmental factors, dysfunctional family, community problem, genetic factor. These are the things or the factors that favors a person to recovery. Self-care, they become aware of the problem, community support, non-judgmental, do not stigmatize them, and of course, the most important thing, family support, the emotional support that the family brings or transmit to these individuals will be one of the factors for the recovery. Okay. So when we assess the level of addiction, we assess it through mild, moderate, or severe. If we have a mild case of addiction, we perform brief counseling. But anyone can perform brief counseling as long as they are trained in brief counseling. For moderate cases, the counselors or the interventionists conduct brief counseling like cognitive behavioral therapy, follow-up, and we further evaluate for further for referrals. And for severe cases, there is also counseling, referrals to a residential facility, and we do pharmacotherapy for those with comorbidities like nanasala mental issues, mental disorders. So just like what I said earlier, the degree of relapse is 40 to 60%, just like your other chronic diseases. So anytime a treated drug addict can go into relapse again. So this is what an illustration just to show you that if a child is exposed to these factors, family factors, community factors, they will likely roll like a snowball down. As they age down, they become hardened to changes gahi na sila. Gahi na sila i-treat kung young pa sila nag-start. Extended exposure leads to violent, offensive behaviors. So saying no is not enough, actually. You have to abstain, be honest about your feeling, because if you're honest about your feeling, you can be, then someone can help you. Okay? Then take the courage to control your cravings and urge. Do not engage with those people who are taking drugs, because the tendency is makahig jud ka, madamay ka. Then always emphasize education. You always educate the effects, the ill effects of drugs, that it can bring about negative consequences into your life. So with that, thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Banay, for that very informative presentation. So very, very informative. So very, very helpful for us, especially for us professional teachers, that we are always in direct contact of the most likely victims of addiction and, of course, drug abuse. We still have another speaker, and then I would like to call again Dr. Jane Giselle, because we will have an open forum. So we will have Dr. Banay first to rest. I don't know if you still have time and that we can have the open forum. And then we can have our second speaker. And of course, to introduce once again is, of course, Dr. Jane Giselle. Doc?
So for our next speaker, he is a man inspired by his mentors who also happen to be working in a rehabilitation center and mark the lives of many. Having seen them inspire people and build their lives, this motivated him to do the same. He is a registered psychometrician in the Department of Health Center of Cebu Treatment and Rehabilitation Center for Women, and he is currently pursuing Master of Arts in Guidance and Counseling at the Cebu Normal University. Patients with utmost respect and his obvious desire to make a difference and help rebuild the lost, the broken, and the wounded people who are struggling with drug addiction. So let us welcome the change catalyst, Mr. Andrew Kagakit.
Good evening. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Is this your
Madam-
slide? Okay na? You're going to share this? Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Can you share again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good evening to the faculty, administrators, students all over the globe who are watching in this virtual seminar. Good evening once again. To start with, I would like to emphasize that disorder or abnormalities of a person can be manageable or listened. If we know how to seek help and refer somebody who is going through life difficulties that needs professional care and treatment. Stigma of having stigma is widespread over the globe, and having gone into a certain SUD or drug addiction is rampant. Yet, in some people's perspective, they somehow did not understand why or how other people become addicted to drugs. So they may mistakenly think that those who have or who use drugs are addict. However, they can be in a way the lack of moral principles or willpower, and that they could stop their drugging or drug use simply by choosing to. So in reality, drug addiction is a chronic disease, and quitting actually takes more than good intentions or has to be a strong will. Drugs change the brain in ways that make quitting hard, and for those who wanted to. By the advancement of human mind, studies had found that drugs affect brain, established treatment that can help people recover from drug addiction and lead to a healthier lives. So objectives: to know what is referral, to know who can make referral, to learn where exactly to refer, to know when to refer, and to which agency, professional to refer, and how can we approach and tell parents. So commonly, these are individuals, no? So who are victims of drug addiction and recreational users of psychoactive drugs. This individual who are involved in drug trafficking, no? Numerous drug pushers do drugging for recreational use, no? Like I said, they are utilized as source of income, pushers to feed their family. So there are also drug pushers who also sells drug for their own drug use, to acquire a certain amount that finances their drugging or addiction. And also there are individuals who are forced to trade or retail drug from their parents, or even to their, or even to the individuals who are syndicated to crimes and drug syndicates. So there are plenty of drugs. Most of them are over the reach in counter in our homes, basically, and usually these drugs are in our proximity, local proximity, and many are influenced by drugs due to curiosity, peer pressure, belongingness, and like I said, in the our society. Okay, so one of which, no, is methamphetamine, and according to Estacio Jr., a researcher in the University of Washington, United States, his research entitled "Assessing Methamphetamine Use Among Drug Using Filipino Youth." So methamphetamine is emerging as a drug of abuse in the late 1980s in the Philippines. However, its impact in our lives of Filipinos youth remains unstudied and unmeasured, which his studies show that the leading cause of such drug use is personal and family problems, followed by peers, influence, curiosity, recreational use or relaxation, and idleness or boredom. So in that light of understanding about PWUDs, or shall we say person who use drugs. So when and where or to whom are we going to refer those individuals that needs professional intervention and care? So the first step in doing so is to have a referral. Yes? Okay. So what is referral? So referral basically, it's the practice of helping a client or a patient to find a needed expert assistance. So the client or student must receive the best possible intervention and professional care institution direct to other counselor, psychologist, medical doctor with a higher level of training or special expertise that caters the client's need. So a teacher may refer to the guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor may refer to the agencies or institution for services they cannot provide. So I guess I assume that mostly of our participants here are educators or in the practice of teaching. So now, how can we seek a help for PWUDs as a concerned individual? In the most all situations, there are clients who are unaware that they are or they need a professional help, or they are pessimistic and feel that this stigma or of seeking professional help of psychological problems, this commonly are in Filipino culture. And quitting is hard to quit if there is no available helping individuals or mental health professionals, no, for and this our mostly of our people are branding or labeling a person crazy or any names associated to the word if they knew that person is seeing a professional, no, mental health expert or a psychologist. It may be psychologist, psychiatrist, or counselor, and that's why more often they do not seek professional help. Accordingly, as a good citizen, as we are concerned, the harm it may cause to the person and to the society. So we should refer an individual to a patient, a person, professional individuals who can really cater their need. And to discuss in the first step in our school setting, no, we should discuss in our department school guidance counselor to acquire a referral form, so we could list down and emphasize the case of this individual who are suffering from this kind of difficulty or problem. And and I think the guidance counselor is knowledgeable enough to make a referral for external linkages for professional help if the client or the student's difficulty is way from beyond his or her expertise. Now, if you are a teacher or a concerned individual and you were able to identify individuals who are suffering from this addiction or distinct personal difficulties problem, now it's your time to seek a professional help, to refer that somebody to a guidance counselor and psychologist or maybe a psychiatrist if it is severe in your assessment or in your observation. So, okay, so because in that way, no, the counselor in your area or in your school maybe validate or can reassess to what extent that individual needs intervention. And with that, so it's your turn to refer. Okay. And now, second, how can we seek help for PWUDs as a concerned individual? So confer with your school attorney or legal security counsel for legalities if there is a reasonable suspicion on students and employees retailing or pushing drugs in your school premises. So what do I mean about reasonable suspicion? So it means that it must based on specific and articulable facts. For example, confiscated drug paraphernalia or photograph evidences with reliable sources and information and taken together with rational inferences as well as validated by the other witnesses. This is to ensure that your institution remains drug-free. So there are common preventive interventions such as frisking during the entrance of your student or what do you call this, a staff in your school setting. Random drug testing if possible. So you need to confer with your school attorney with that. Anti-drug campaign or educational psychoeducational seminars. So it depends on the school on how they would address this kind of difficulty or what you call this problem with the student. Okay. Next. So when is the time to refer PWUDs or person who use drugs? So first, when he or she is sober and not under influence of substance. Kanang wala na nagtama or wala na nakagamit. So why? So why, you may ask, waiting for an individual to become a sober or in a sober state? It's because it will compromise the safety, the therapeutic intervention, and the cognitive judgment of the client or the student. As much as possible, we need the client to have a clear understanding and full cognitive functioning. So the process of intervention is fully understood or put into an awareness and have that sense of accountability, not only for the client or the student, but together with the family or the counselor. So a mentor once said that if you are talking to a person who are using drugs or still in a state where the drug is in his system, that intervening the intoxicated man is like you are just talking to a drug or the substance itself. So mora na siya, no, nga ikaw bisan pa og unsaon nimo pagstorya, unsaon nimo paghatag og intervention, no, dili gihapon siya makakuha or di gihapon siya mo take effect ang imuhang intervention bisan pa og kapila, no, kay mao man gyud na maglisod man gyud kuha ang tao kung naa gihapon siya sa state nga high, naa pa siya sa iyang dream world, no, grabe pa siya ka kuan high, and that lead to number 2. So when kanus aman ta mo refer kung wala na siya nagtama or wala na siya naa na siya sa iyang normal nga stage. Of course, oo. No? So, what if, no, sa number 2, kanus aman ta mo hatag og kuan kanus aman ta mo refer, no? Kung ang tawo na ay gigunitan nga kutsilyo or naa na siya nag-inflict na siya og harm si ang kagalingon. Okay? So, muhatag ta og referral, no, sa ato ang school counselor or psychologist if the patient or the student is kana in the great danger, no. So mangita dayon ta og person, no, or tao nga pwede nga maduula na to or a responder that it could be secure the place or mga tao nga naa sa palibot niya para dili niya mahilabtan or ang mga tao di kahilabot niya. So it needs a professional training yun to avoid a further damage or danger. Okay? So asa man ta? So mo refer, what agencies can we offer? Can offer services in PWDs or children involved with drugs or students involved with drugs. No, pwede ta mo dool og DSWD. So ang DSWD, no, nag-mandate nga mo provide sila og social protection sa mga bata or sa mga hangkod nga mga batan-on nga nagamit sa mga sindikato. Unya naabot sila reintegration program, no, kasagaran ni ini na ani sa ato ang region o gitawag ni o kuan bahay pag-asa siguro na siya, no. Unya unsa man atong maduulan kung low pa siya, low og risk ang batan-on or ang bata or atong estudyante. So basically, no, moduol gyapon ta sa ato ang school counselor, of course, no. So what if naatay ka mga kaila nga suffer pod og drug dependency or drug addiction, no? Kung low risk siya, pwede ta mo dool. We can seek help through community-based drug abuse recovery clinics or centers, no? Si PIDAC, no, daghan na diha sa Mandawi, na ata sa Cebu City, depende sa inyong locality nga naay mga public nga barangay recovery program. So, how about moderate to severe patients? No, asa man ta mo refer? So it could be an institution, no, or a facility, a government facility na asa tay private agencies and professional nga pwede ta kadangat sa atong problema or pwede na to ma-refer, no, sa natay gitawag nga kuan nga mga addiction management centers or rehabilitation centers. So, pwede sa takaduol sa atong mga government agencies like TRCs, no, na dere sa amoa sa Hagobiao, DOH-TRC for women, and sa Argao na atay mga panglalaki. Sa DOH-TRC gyapon na siya sa Argao, no? So karon, how can we inform the parents or guardians? So, unsa may best nga pamaagi nga ato ang istoryahan ang mga guardian or ang mga parents is that through collaboration of your guidance counselor, because I do not suggest that nga kinahanglan ikaw gyud ang mga mut, no, sa pag-adto sa mga pasyente or paghatod sa impormasyon sa inyong mga parents, kay pwede kay ni mahitabo nga mas daghan na noon ang damage or ang risgo nga atong maabtan kung kita na mismo nga wala kayo ta nahibaw-an, no, or nakahibalo sa pamaagi ni ini. So with that, no, ato ang yung i-ensure ang safety o ato ang ethical procedures, no, sa kani nga kaso. So technically, no, ang ato yung guidance counselor kay equip sa mga skills unsaon pag family counseling, o ang mga teachers, no, na pwede kayo mo refer gyud sa atong guidance counseling or office, no. So mao gina nga ang mga magtutudlo, no, pwede jud kaayo nga mahimong resource person sa mahog nga first or primary resource person sa kani nga mga kaso sa atong mga estudyante. O diri natapos ang ako ang pag-present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. Okay, can we give our two speakers a reaction clap in your window? So, thank you very much. Very, very informative on both the medical and of course the referral part of our session tonight. No? So we really do hope that many of us, especially for teachers, no? So maybe now we will not just waste our time, no, but we will now go to the open forum. No, if you have any question, you can just open your microphone and then you can ask the questions to our resource speaker, Mr. Andrew Kagakit, na, and of course Dr. Clint Banaay, pertaining to their presentation, and of course maybe some other things that are also relevant, no, or relative to our topic tonight. So if you have if you have any questions, you please do so. And of course, Dr. Jasmine Peralta is still here with us, and I believe she can also interject, no, in some ways as well. Okay. Sige, ako yung una. Thank you very much sa ato ang mga speakers. As I've said, it's very, very informative. Our participants tonight are basically, most of them are well, some of them, no, maybe 50% of them are coming from Mindanao. And then my question is, especially in the referral, no, and most of our students right now in the masteral degree program, they are public school teachers. You made mention of guidance counselors to refer, Mr. Kagakit. I don't know if the public school system has trained their guidance counselors who are assigned in their school, no, on how also to do it, no, in terms of the referral, because they might be referring it to their guidance counselor, but yet the guidance counselor in that particular, because these are most are teachers and some of them are even administrators already, no, of the public school, especially in Surigao, in Dinagat Island, in Siargao, and some parts of Mindanao. No, these are the most common students that we have here in the graduate school program. So you made mention of our local here in Cebu City and of course in Region 7. But as I've said, no, with regards to the guidance counselor, so if they are not trained, so on saan man, how can it what would be other alternative, no, because definitely DepEd, I just would like to ask, no, you can disagree, my students in the public school system, you may disagree if what I'm saying here is that maybe some of the counselors that are assigned, because I know for sure that guidance counselors in the public school system are also teachers. They are not masters in guidance counseling. They are not registered psychologists, no. So these are teachers that were assigned to do guidance counseling work, no? So what can you advise to them, Mr. Andrew?
I think it's not an advice, but rather a suggestion.
Okay.
So, although we have this a good heart and we have this intention to help anybody or somebody who is having a difficulty, and even if we are having advices and we have a matured enough to say that things that we are already experienced and we already taught, but somehow if that advice or that your good intentions are usually go into a failure, so much important na ato yun i-refer, no? So para di tayo ma-blame sa mga
Yes. But in the absence,
consequences
no?
na
In the absence of the guidance counselor, that's what I'm asking. In the absence ba, if because they lack training, and then it will be referred by the teachers to the guidance counselor, definitely these guidance counselor also are not also equipped, no, in handling the case. So I would like to ask whether are all local government units all over the Philippines are do we have this? Maybe Dr. Jasmine or even Dr. Glenn can also help us with regards to my question.
If I may, sir, good evening. Hello po. With regards
Yes,
po
yes.
for the different schools, the Department of Education and the CHED, they have already made a program with regards to training the guidance counselors. But I just don't know with the change in the administration if they have continued with that, and especially with the current situation of the COVID-19 situation in our country. But for example, if the for each school, supposedly they should have their own particular policy on how best to address the any student who will be having a problem. But if in case they don't have a trained counselor or any staff in the school to do the intervention, each particular local government unit, they have an anti-drug abuse council wherein they can refer for each LGU. And I think the DILG has tasked the different local government units to really operationalize the anti-drug abuse council, or at least here in Cebu, we have also that particular activity or operational or functional anti-drug abuse councils who will have to provide services for any kind of either students or professionals for that matter who are into drug problem. And if it depends on the extent of the problem, so maybe the school can just advise the parents to refer if it is already a drug dependent. They can already refer to a facility, just like here in Cebu, we have for females here in DOSTRC, for females here in Hagubiao. Although our facility is still named DOHTRC Cebu City because we used to be in Cebu City, but for now we have transferred here in Hagubiao, Mandaue City. So for the males naman po, ang residential facility is in Argao. But for now, we have the former halfway house there in Careta in Cebu City. We are now developing it into a referral center for all kinds of drug users who are actually seeking an outpatient intervention. So yun po. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc.
In
Dr.
addition,
Banay, would you like to add something?
yes,
Sige,
Doc.
sir.
As mentioned by Dr. Jasno, we have a system or approach in the referral system. But for me, I would advise our teachers as the second parent in school, no,
Yes.
you have to communicate with the parents, no. You cannot just referate away the child, especially an underage child, no. Okay,
Legal.
maawayan mo sa parents.
You know,
So communicate with the parents first, and you have to share because you have listened to my discussion. You have to share what were the observed thing, or what were observed to the student, no, or the pupil, no, what are the things that you have observed from the pupil, no. You noted that he or she is sleeping in class most of the time. Those are the things that you have to divulge to the parents, and then the parents will, it's very hard because some of these children are involved in a drug family. So lisod kaayo, no? So if ever you have to communicate with the guardian of the parents, then that's the time that the parents siguro or the guardian will tell you, because my child, bang good sir, is involved in computer ana. So daghan kay factors, no? So computer, they addict, they substance use, no? So there's other things you have to corroborate. No, as Sir Andrew said earlier, you have to corroborate with the guardians and the parents. Then after that, you meet halfway. Well, shall you refer this child to the municipal health or municipal social welfare service, because they're equipped in referring these children to in handling these children, the municipal health service, no? The municipal or the city health, the city social services, or the municipal social services. Like for in Cebu City, we have the COSAP in association with the city social service. And when they refer these children to the specific government agency, there's another specific agency like in the DSWD who will monitor these children, or they will communicate with the Department of Health Treatment and Rehabilitation Center for further assessment if this patient or this child has drug addiction problem. Is it moderate or severe? Because if it's severe, they have to be admitted. If it's moderate, or they can undergo OPD, or mild dragane, they can undergo counseling.
Mm. Yes, thank you very much, Doc. That is true. Also a warning also to our teachers kay basig mahinayak mo ba, no? And then not all the you mentioned nga symptoms are really directly related to drugs. So base bag kay katulgo ng bata or na ay mga erratic behavior niya, basig kita mismo mga teacher mo conclude ba. Yeah,
Oo.
tinuod to ni Dr. Banaay, and actually it also happened a long time ago, no, when one of our teachers called the attention of the parents, and then it is true, no, nga ni-react sa gid sila, but it was really unfounded. So it is very crucial gyud kaayo, no, ang to be sensitive also, no, especially most often, Doc, I don't know if you would agree, but most often when we refer this to the parents would usually deny.
Yes, no? That's
No,
the
naa
pro-
sila
that's the-
denial.
because drug addiction is being stigmatized. You
Yes.
don't want your child to be associated. You don't want your family family name to be associated with drug addiction, because it is a stigmatized problem.
That's-
They themselves deny. Mo na yung problema. If they keep on denying, the problem becomes larger and larger until you cannot find any solution at all.
That's true.
Mm-mm.
Doc, I just would also like to ask with regards to the recovery, no, of the patient. What is much more has a higher recovery kanang naagid sa rehabilitation center? Because I also heard, no, in some studies that spiritual intervention in rehabilitation, no, because there are some here in Cebu City, di ba? We know that there are some that are being run by Christian communities, and then they have also a good number of recovering drug users. I don't know if that is still the case today, but before, no, when I was also handling the student services, we always have connection of this community-based nga Christian community-based nga mga drug rehabilitation center, and most often nindot ang ilang ano. So does it would also mean that the spiritual Christian approach, no, of rehabilitating
Yes.
our users, is that very
Yes.
helpful or significant ba na siya, Doc?
In our center, sir, the Department of Health Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, we incorporate the spiritual aspect of intervention. It is
Very good.
even Dr. Rajas, our chief of hospital, has even advocated additional programs other than spiritual, like music therapy, like that, because scientific evidence would prove that these modalities
Yes.
somehow influence their recovery or their motivation. But if we were going to compare these different modalities, let us remember that there are different severity or levels of drug addiction. We have the mild, moderate, and
Yes.
severe. For the severe cases, we
Correct.
have to admit them.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
For the moderate, they can undergo outpatient programs, and for the mild, they can undergo brief counseling.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you, Doc. It's very good to know, no, that the approach right now. Okay, before, during our time, that was siguro years back, may pagka punitive ang approach,
Oo.
may
Yes.
pagka police ang approach mo tong here in USP, very near kayo ang drug rehabilitation center here, in which is being run by the Philippine National Police. And then the approach was really very, very punitive, very,
True, true.
very police. No? So actually, the recovery there is the escape there is so the escaping. They treat them as inmates. No? So that's quite unfortunate, and it's really good that right now there was really a paradigm shift, no,
Yes,
of the approach, no.
because we scientific evidences show that drug addiction is a brain disease. That's why we have to change the approach to a scientific approaches, no? So
Mhm.
evidence-based, and we try to incorporate individualized level of care. We give specific modality for or appropriate modality for a specific problem of the patient. If they have psychological issue, we refer them to psychologists. If they have medical issues, then we refer them to the medical doctors. For issues like educational or capability building, we refer them to social works to enhance or to improve their capabilities, like mga livelihood programs like that, because these are the different course in, or what shall we say, the different tawag nito, course, no, that mitigates the recovery of a person, no. You have to complete all the recoveries. Kung na gani usad kulang, like naka-recover siya from the rehabilitation center, pagawas niya wala siya trabaho, then he would go into drug selling again. So we have to capacitate them. That's why in the rehabilitation center, in our center, we have livelihood programs instituted for them.
Very good, no? Very nice. Ayun, ang programa ka well, I don't know if many are aware of it, no? But I personally I'm not we're not aware of such. So I don't know if are there questions coming from the body. Anyone who would like to ask questions?
Can I ask, sir?
Okay.
Doc, can I ask? In this
Please
time-
identify yourself and then
I'm Monette of USP.
okay.
Okay. I was so lucky that before when COSAP started, I was given a chance. I would name the institution to be involved with COSAP for 2 months and a half.
Oh,
And I've observed there that there was a visitation rights, right, for those special patients. Now, in this time of COVID, Doc, was that still practice?
yes.
That there was, because you said family support is so important, right? Okay, so how do you deal this in this kind of, I mean, in this time now?
Okay.
Was there still a visitation rights for those patients there?
Well, some of the before, no, like last year, no, we were all closed, na close to tanan because of we don't know how the disease would spread, and the disease would spread, but eventually we'll learn how to minimize or control the transmission of this disease, no, by 3 basic things like face mask, face shield, hand washing, and social distancing. So right now we are even communicating with COSAP, and we have referrals we have even patients nga na-refer nila, no? So they're active right now. They're active na. Pero like what I said, there is reduction of the services, na reduce lang.
Oh, okay. But still there's visitation?
Yes, visitation.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you, Doc.
Yes, Doc. To add, Dr. Jazz, let's
Nakamute ka, Doc? Doc Jazz?
ask Doc Jazz, you're muted.
To add regards to the question with the visitation, we actually do virtual po. So even though they don't see face to face, the family can talk with our patients through virtual means, pwede po sa telepono or sa messenger or through Zoom. So we have a regular schedule for them to do that. So even though they didn't see each other, actually talk to each other. And sometimes if they really want to come to the center, nung time po na may COVID, it just for distancing lang po, or at least for a short, for a few minutes. Last December, we were able to do that. But for now, since there are also increasing number of cases again, we're trying to stop first the visitation face-to-face, but there's the visitation virtual. So, ang tawag po, virtual visit po yon ng relatives sa patient.
Virtual visit.
Thank you, Doc.
Very good, no? At least naagid tayo pamaagi, no? In all the things, especially for our patients there who are with us. Doc, just to ask also, Dr. Jazz, Is TRC all over the Philippines?
Yes po, DOH-TRC is all over the Philippines, and we are lucky in regions sa Central Visayas because we have two rehab facility in Cebu po, in Central Visayas, in Cebu. Sa Cebu po, we are the exclusive facility for females, and we have another one in Argao, exclusive facility for males. So meron po tayo sa Dulag, Leyte for the Visayas, we have in Iloilo, yun po. And all over
How about in
the Philippines naman po,
Mindanao,
meron
Doc? How about in Mindanao? Because
Davao po, meron sa Davao.
Surigao, wala.
Surigao, meron po sa Surigao, sa Caraga. Are newly developed rehab centers. Actually, we have now completed the rehab facilities in all regions in the whole country for DOH.
Okay.
For NCR po, yung sa TRC-Kutan.
Doc, are they free? Or do the...
Socialized po, sir. Social. Say
So
socialized.
you have to share
They
something.
are, oo. So, meron po yung talagang hindi kaya magbayad. Meron ba, but based po sa batas kasi, they have to have the cost sharing. But for us here, at least for the food, they have to share.
Yes.
At least for the food. Yun lang po. All the rest are for free.
Okay. So at least rehabilitation, especially private rehab centers are very, I think, very expensive.
It's about 35,000 to 50,000 po per month po.
Per
pag
month.
private. But for us, basically, it's only 150 a day para po sa food na 50 pesos. But usually, they just pay maximum po na 5,000 a month.
So all rehab
For each
centers sa TRC, Doc, are they live in sila or may mga stay out? May
Meron po kaming pag residential po, live in. Meron po kami outpatient services na rin and the aftercare program. So we have the service capability po ng mga TRCs ngayon ng DOH, meron pong inpatient or the residential that we call outpatient din po, meron din.
Okay. Very nice. So that's a very good program. That's really, really a very good program. That, and I think many of us in the academe must also share this information, especially to our students and of course to the academic community, both private and public. So I think these things are really need to be many should be aware of the services of the government, so to speak. So nindot sad kayo pamanon. Monet, do you want to have another follow-up question? You're raising your hand, no? Wala? Okay.
Just to add
More,
on,
I
we
was
have
just
a-
so happy that it was being brought up because I miss also my life there in COSAP, volunteering. It's so near in the school, right? Before,
Yes.
across the school. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Do you accept volunteers, Doc? Doc Clint?
Yes po.
Okay.
Until now, Doc, you do?
For now po kasi ako na sasagot.
Oh, yeah.
For
Doc.
now po kasi we temporarily po stop
Volunteers.
outside po muna volunteers because of threat of COVID. So but hopefully pag medyo na po naglaylo na yung cases, we are very much willing to accommodate volunteers. Actually, we have volunteers here na nag-training sila. So before we have also students from USC before, from BS Psychology, but we are actually opening to to partner with schools so that we can also be of help to their students.
So there are programs that you are having a design for schools, both public and private, Doc?
Depende po yun, sir, sa head po
school.
ng agency, ng center, on how they will admit mga ganito special mga programs. So pag psychologist po, syempre under po ng psychology section namin who will also handle the training of the students. Pero meron din po kaming volunteers. But for now, ang volunteers po namin, mga volunteer staff na mga dating patients.
Na dating patient.
Yes, and we have also hired former patients po namin who are now staff of DOH Cebu TRC.
Pero but you still accept volunteers and not necessarily they are former patients or
Yes po,
mga
yes,
pwede
yes,
din. Okay, that's nice. But you're in Hagobiao, no? Layo-layo sad. Yeah. Okay. So any question? Eril?
Sir, can I ask some question?
Yes, please.
I don't know where to, but I think I'd like to address this to our resource speaker because it's really nice, no, to hear this government program intervention. But correct me if I'm wrong, DOH may involve when there's already a severe, mild, and the katong very affected na gyud kaayo. Is there a program ba sa atong government? I really don't know if you guys can answer this. Nga ma-prevent na to una sila mo try? Or if there is that enough? Because yeah, it's beautiful that our government have you guys, no, but if it's really impossible to prevent our young, our old, or our to try these things, or if there is one idea, because of course all of us have their own idea. But my first question, if does our government has a concrete program to prevent our young people or even our old people to really try? Because it seems that the one promoting drugs is a better salesman than us. Really sorry for that. Really sorry for that. So this is a question for our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The Dangerous Drugs Board, the DB,
Yeah.
has been advocating demand reduction and demand supply reduction. Sa supply reduction, it is the PDEA who is handling that. They want to, their intention is to reduce the supply so that this supply won't be able to reach the community. For the demand reduction, the DDB has also promoted the Kabataan Kontra Droga, which institutionalized different communities or at the barangay level or at the municipal level to launch a program for the kabataan and also for the community-based rehabilitation program. So na-institutionalize na since 2016 pa. Anan. Now, the problem is diba, LGU, the local government unit is the implementing body. So sila dapat ang nagpasiugda, no?
No.
So mo na problema po. On the counterpart of the Department of Education, the Department of Education is being encouraged by the DDB to also to organize a program in school. So not a program in school. They train teachers, guidance counselor, how to assess, how to screen students in order for them to be referred. So training dapat. Now for us at the Department of Health, we do this advocacy. Mo bitaw ning advocacy na mo. It is part of our OPCR that we conduct advocacy program to educate different students and different school that about the ill effects of drugs so that they won't go into drug addiction. And aside from that, we have workshops, which was unfortunately discontinued because of this pandemic, but we have really launched workshop and we partnered with the different schools in Mandaue and Consolacion, in which we trained different schools or a set of students in order for them to be trained in kanang mga life skill workshop where they can refuse taking drugs, or how do they help their peer or co-students to refuse drug addiction. So these are the different programs na dapat na implement sana, but because of this pandemic murag somehow it was disrupted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doc. Any of the speaker would like to answer or to add on?
By the way, I would like to promote the National Mental Health Crisis Hotline of the Department of Health, in which if they cater not just drugs of abuse, they also cater mental health issues. They have a hotline you can call if you need help, if you need assistance. So the hotline is 1553 and 1550.
1553.
131550.
Is this 24/7?
Mabutang sa chat.
24/7 is it, Doc?
Unfortunately, sir, it was not indicated in their website.
Okay.
Maybe
Sige,
office
pwede
hours.
naman. Sige, office hours. That would be good. Because right now, no, mental health is also one of the issues right now, no?
Yes, sir.
So these are the things that are very helpful, especially. And then, as also to add, no, awareness is really one of the strongest factor in really trying to
Education.
education. And of course, for us teachers, no, we should not be complacent as well, and then we should also be sensitive, no, especially on the needs of our young. Sometimes we're too focused of our subject, we're too focused of the lessons that we teach our students, our pupils, but most often because we're so much into it, so we sometimes forget, no, the fragile life of our students, especially if they're already suffering from these things. And family support is really important, no? So strengthening of the family is one of the biggest contributor also of kanang stopping or even elimination of these drugs, no? So of course, in the classroom level, we always teach the strength, no, of our students pertaining to how strong the family should be. So siguro usa na sa atong ika-contribute, no, sa ato ang sa drug prevention. Nya Doc, last question. Kanang party drugs nga gina-mention, because I think that's the most common karon madunggan sa namo ba, no? So how dangerous is the party? Do they have the same effect as that of shabu nga katong 1,000 ang iyahang or something?
Your party drugs, like your ecstasy. Actually, your
Ecstasy.
ecstasy is another metabolite which was made from its mother substance, which is also methamphetamine.
Okay.
Pero the other party drugs, like what happened to Labapalooza, if you remember the Labapalooza, if you happen to remember last 2019, bato nga sinulog nga nay namatay the girl Abad, no?
Girl, yeah.
She
Juana.
took a pill made of different stimulants, no? You know the effect of stimulants. It boosts your energy. It stimulates your heart to beat faster. So she got an overdose with that. I think she took 4 pills from her boyfriend. When she was autopsied, 4 pills were retrieved from the stomach.
My goodness. So that's very dangerous, no? So well, anyway, so at least for a start, we your advocacy with the Department of Health and then the Treatment and Rehabilitation Center all over the Philippines, no? So we salute you.
Thank you
Salute
very much,
to all of
sir.
you, no, because you have always done so much, no, with little of the resources we know, no, that you have right now. And then we could see, you know, very promising young professionals. Si Dr. Clint is very young, no? Si Mr. Kagakit is very young. Even the hospital chief, no, is very young, working really, no, to really help, no. So can we give them a big reaction applause, no, in our frame, so that they know that here at USPF we appreciate their work. So you are the modern day heroes because you are doing God's work, and you're doing as well saving our families, saving our children, no? And then of course it is not you alone, but this is a collaborative effort in all sectors of the society, no? And of course the academe also has a very strong advocacy, no, of drug prevention and drug abuse. So let's continue, no, this fight, no, in the most that we can, no, the most that we can. So, and of course to trust God, no, and to have that faith, no, that these things maybe at least di magani siguro ni siya mawala, but yet makontrol, and then we can really save so many young lives, no, that for many years that I've been working in the university, Doc, I have seen, no, some of our students really, no, some of them even died, some of them naimong taong grasa, some of them are in prison, some of them, and then they went through all the rehabilitation, and it is true when Dr. Clint Banay said earlier, no, that ang relapse is is common, no. Kayo, it keeps on recurring them, no. No? And they keep on repeating, no, the same. So that's one challenge as well. So I know for sure daghan po siguro mga pangutana, no, but yet it's already quite late. And then once again, no, in behalf of the University of Southern Philippines Foundation, our president, Attorney Paulino Yabao, our dean in the graduate school, Dr. Ernesto Alolor, together with my colleagues here in the academic council, of course, the four principals that we have here, Dr. Elaine Patino of the elementary Lahog campus, Susan Durano, our principal in the junior high, Arlene Roldan for our senior high, and of course, Mrs. Maura Villamor of the Mabini campus. We would like to thank all of you for your support. And of course, our participants, no, my students in the graduate school program, Education 250, 253, and 256. So thank you very much for being with us, and let us always bring this knowledge, this learning, this awareness, and make it as our personal advocacy. No, it is just not only knowing it, no, we have really to advocate, no, such, because if we don't bring this advocacy in the level of being personal to us, definitely we will not be of help, no, in our own community or even in our own family. So once again, thank you very much, Dr. Jasmine Peralta, Dr. Clint Banaay, Andrew Kagakit, and of course, Dr. Jane Giselle. Thank you very much for this. And we can have a picture taking. Before you go, there's a form, no, that is being downloaded in your chat. It's just a few minutes, no? Mag-picture taking lang usa ta, and then you take the evaluation, because that will also be one of the proof that you attended the seminar, so you will be given as well certificates for this. No, so mag-picture taking sa ta. So I would like to ask kay daghan man ta dire, ako lang i-move ang atong mga speaker sa center, ha, kay para ano sila makitaan. So where is Dr. Jane? Asa man ka, Dr. Jane? Nawala man ka diri sa akong frame.
Here.
Okay. So unahon lang sa nato ning naa sa front. Okay, ha? So can you please open your frames? Bandolon, Mary Jane, Genevieve, Susan. Then, okay, sige. So akong gi-center dire ang ano. So this is for the first frame. Yung second frame, we will have also our picture taking there. So kay namang gutay tulo ka frames karon, no? Earlier we were around 80 people, no, who was attending. Right now 75. Okay, so are you ready? So please okay, ready? Smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I'll try to check whether kung okay ba ang ato ang paint. Yeah, before nato ano. Please also take also some pictures para mas ano siya. Okay. Sige, that will be for the first frame. Okay, for a while. Sige. And then for the second frame, okay, sa may tao na diri. So mag-picture taking ta. Sige, ready? 1, 2, smile. Okay. So let's check. Okay. Sige. Okay, so third. Okay, so third ta. Okay, ready? Smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, for a while, ato sang i-check. Okay, siguro ang first frame ato ang usban. Kay murag wala siya nakuha. Ang first frame. Sige, atong ibalik ha. Sige, nakuha man ang second ug ang third frame. Oo, sige. For a while But for those who are also, can you please, you can also, sige, first frame mo sa ta. Sige, ready, 1, 2, smile. Okay, sige. Okay. Ito na siyang sound. So, we select all. And then we save. Okay, so wala gid siya. Okay, so with that, so thank you once again. Thank you, Dr. Banay, Dr. Peralta, and
Thank
Mr.
you.
Kagit
Thank you, Dr. Lu.
for your participation.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. And then please don't forget to have the forms. I-download na nila. So it's in the chat box. So atong mga participants, please, so that they can also, so before we will go out. Okay. So with this, we will end officially, especially, and of course, we would also like to thank those who are watching us in YouTube Live, in our YouTube channel, no? Hashtag Verbum Day USPF Apostolate, and of course in the Facebook page as well of the Apostolate. So once again, thank you very much for those who are watching us there, and we will end our live stream. And thank you for our speakers, and thank you for our participants. So good night to all, and have a safe
Night.
evening.